Yeah, I signed for the loan in her name. She won't know the difference. I froze inside the fitting room, recognizing my husband's voice on the other side of the thin wall. He was laughing, telling his mistress how he'd fooled me. I pulled out my cell phone, activated the voice recorder, and calmly stepped out to face them. One word, and his face went white as a sheet of paper. Layla Vance was walking through the shops at Willow Creek slowly, moving as if through a fog. It had been a rough day at work. She'd spent the morning digging through a mountain of paperwork, followed by 3 hours of customer complaints, and then found out over lunch that the accounting department had messed up the numbers again. Her head was pounding, her shoulders ached, and all she wanted was to get home, kick off her heels, and crash on the sofa. But on the way, she remembered that the trench coat she'd worn for the past 4 years was completely shot. The sleeves were frayed, the lining had split along the seam, and the dark green color had faded into an unrecognizable mess. I need to buy a new one, Layla thought, turning toward the mall entrance. She didn't usually like shopping, especially on a Friday evening when the place was packed with tired people rushing to beat closing time. But today, for some reason, she felt like treating herself. Maybe it was a premonition, or maybe just the sheer exhaustion of her monotonous life. Work, home, work, home. Marcus, her husband, had been completely withdrawn these last few months. He came home late, answered questions with one-word replies, and disappeared on weekends, claiming it was either a fishing trip or a guy's night. Layla had always chalked it up to stress. His job was demanding, and Marcus had always been a quiet man anyway. The automatic doors slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, it was warm and bright, smelling of coffee from the nearby cafe and fresh pastries. People hurried back and forth with shopping bags. Children ran between the displays, and soft music played somewhere in the background. Layla pulled her phone from her purse and checked the time, 6:30. She figured she still had enough time to pick out a coat and get home by 8 o'clock. She rode the escalator up to the second floor, where the clothing stores were located. She walked past the athletic wear, past the denim shop, and stopped by a boutique she'd seen many times but never entered. In the window, a mannequin wore a stunning navy blue coat cinched with a thin belt. It looked expensive, yet tasteful. Layla stepped inside. The air smelled pleasantly of new fabric and a light perfume. The displays sparkled under the soft lights. Coats, jackets, and trenches of every imaginable color and style hung on the racks. She stopped by a sharp black coat with a wide collar. "Good evening. Can I help you find something?" A young sales associate approached her, a friendly smile on her face and her hair neatly tied back. "Good evening. I'd like to try on a coat, something classic for everyday wear." "Certainly. What size do you wear?" "A size 10. The associate nodded and disappeared between the racks. Layla walked along the display, looking at the models. "This one's too bright. This one has a fur collar, not practical. And this brown one?" No, she didn't want brown. It reminded her too much of the old one. "Here, take a look," the young woman returned, holding 3 coats. "This is a classic navy model, very elegant. This gray one has a belt, and here's a black one with an interesting cut. See how the shoulder line is slightly dropped? It looks very stylish." Layla took the navy one. The fabric was pleasant to the touch, heavy but not bulky. The color was deep and rich, the kind that wouldn't fade or dull after a couple of seasons. "The fitting rooms are right over there," the associate pointed to a row of stalls in the back of the store. "If you need another size or want to see more models, just call me." "Thank you." Layla walked toward the fitting rooms. 3 stalls stood side by side, separated by thick, muted beige curtains. The first one was occupied. A muffled woman's voice could be heard on a phone call. Layla went into the second, hung the coat on the hook, and started taking off her jacket. Soft, instrumental music played in the store. She slipped out of her jacket, hung it next to the coat, straightened her blouse, which had gotten a little wrinkled during the day, and slipped the new coat over her shoulders. She buttoned it up. The material was soft and fit her figure nicely. She looked in the mirror. It sat well. The shoulders were right. The length was perfect. She turned sideways, evaluating the silhouette. Maybe a little loose at the waist? or was it just the way she felt after a tiring workday? Then, a man's voice, loud, satisfied, and containing a familiar cadence Layla would know anywhere, came from the next fitting room, the one where someone had been on the phone just moments ago. "Stop it, baby, it's fine. I'm telling you, she won't figure it out." Layla froze. The hand that was reaching to unbutton the coat stopped halfway. It was Marcus, her husband. Here, in the next fitting room, in a women's clothing store. Her heart hammered somewhere in her throat. Her pulse roared in her ears. Did I imagine it? No, she knew that voice too well. She had lived with him for 8 years, heard him every day, every morning, every night. She would recognize it, even through a wall, even in a crowd. "Why are you worried?" Marcus continued, clearly talking to someone right next to him. "The loan is done. The money's already on the card, under her name, naturally. My credit is trash after that car incident, remember? But Layla's is spotless, clean as a whistle. The bank didn't even really check the documents, just for show. They called once, confirmed the details, and that was it. The money was transferred." A cold chill spread through Layla's body. Her fingers went numb. Her breath hitched. She slowly sank onto the small poof in the corner of the fitting room, staring blankly at the curtain separating her from her husband's voice. A loan in her name. What is he talking about? What loan? "Come on," Marcus laughed, and his laughter held such a careless, confident note that Layla felt sick. "The signature? I told you, it's all covered. She won't even find out. You know how she is. She doesn't look at paperwork. She trusts me with everything. I slipped her a few documents to sign, told her they were some forms for my job. So she signed them without looking. The bank doesn't care, as long as the signature is there and the ID matches." A woman's voice responded softly, indistinctly. Layla couldn't make out the words, but the tone was flirtatious, playful. A young voice, not hers. "Don't worry, sweetheart," Marcus continued, and Layla heard the rustle of clothes as he moved. "We'll be in Cancun in 2 weeks. Imagine that, 5-star, all-inclusive. I already picked out the package, just gotta pay for it. And Layla can think I'm on a business trip. She's used to it. I tell her I'm traveling every month. Last month I said I was gone for a week, and we were at the resort, remember?" He laughed again, the satisfied, carefree laugh of a man sure that everything was going according to plan, that no one would expose him, that he was smarter than everyone else. Layla sat motionless. Her mind was empty, not even thoughts, just a kind of white noise, like static on an old television. A loan in her name without her knowledge, a forged signature, a mistress, Cancun. The Atlanta trips that never happened, the Miami conferences she knew nothing about. She remembered how Marcus had indeed left for a week a month ago. He'd told her they had an important meeting, that his boss required his personal presence. She had even walked him to the door with his bag, kissed him goodbye and said, "Be safe on the road." And he was heading to the beach with this woman. "How much did you end up getting anyway?" the woman asked, louder this time. Layla heard her voice clearly. Young, sharp. She was definitely under 30. "45,000, Marcus replied. "For 3 years. The payments are small, only $1,500 a month. Layla won't even notice. I'll just take her debit card and transfer the money to the bank. I'll tell her it's for utilities or something else. She never checks." $45,000. Layla closed her eyes. The sum spun in her head. Unbelievable. $45,000. A loan she hadn't taken, a debt she didn't know about. But what if she finds out? The woman's voice held a note of anxiety. What if the bank calls her or she gets a text? "She won't," Marcus said confidently. "I gave them my cell number when I signed the papers, so all the notifications come to me. And she doesn't go to the bank herself. I told you, about 3 years ago, I told her I'd handle all the bills so she wouldn't have to worry. Taking care of her, right? She loves having such an attentive husband. And I quietly control everything. Her card, the accounts, all the finances. How much time had passed? Seconds? A minute? Layla didn't know. She sat staring at the floor, unable to move. Somewhere far away, music played. Somewhere, shoppers bustled. But here, in this small fitting room, her world was crashing down. Then something clicked inside, sharp, like a switch being thrown, and in place of the paralysis came icy clarity. A cold, sober thought. I have to record this. I have to document what he's saying, or he'll deny everything, twist it around, lie his way out. Layla slowly pulled the phone from her purse. Her hands were shaking, but she forced them to obey. She unlocked the screen and opened the voice recording app. A large red button was in the middle of the screen. She pressed it. The phone vibrated once. The recording began. Black screen, running seconds, a pulsating red circle. She placed the phone on her knees, screen up, and froze again, listening intently. Every word was now vital. Well, that's great then, Marcus was saying. So we're all set. I'll stop by your place tonight. Layla's stuck at work until 9 o'clock. Something about inventory or an audit, I forget. We can relax, have some wine, watch a movie, and first thing tomorrow I'll go to the bank and transfer some of the money to my account, and it's a done deal. Some for the vacation, some for the dress and shoes you wanted. Remember? I remember, the woman laughed. You promised to buy them for me a month ago. Well, we'll buy them tomorrow. We'll buy them right now. We have plenty of cash now. Layla clenched her fists so hard, her nails dug into her palms. Simple, naive. Her whole life had been nothing but work and home. She trusts him completely, never checks. She remembered how 3 years ago, Marcus had indeed offered to take over all their finances. He'd said he wanted to lighten her load, that she worked hard enough, that it was no trouble for him. He was often near the bank anyway, and she believed him. She was grateful. She thought he was caring, thought it was love. But he was simply setting the stage to control her money, her credit, her life. But what if she suddenly asks about the money? The woman asked again. What if she sees something leaving the account? She won't notice, Marcus scoffed. I've told you 100 times. She doesn't keep track of any of it. She gets her paycheck, gives me the card, and I give her cash for small things. Everything else is mine. Well, technically ours, but she doesn't even wonder how much is in there or what's being spent. As long as there's enough for food and utilities, she doesn't care. Layla bit her lip. This was the truth. The ugly, humiliating truth. She really hadn't been paying attention. She had trusted him, handed over her card, accepted cash for groceries and transit, and never asked questions. She thought that's what was expected. That's what families did when the man was the head of the household. But in reality, she had just handed him control of her life. Fine, the woman drew out the word. Just let's get everything done quickly. I'm tired of hiding in corners. I want to see you normally, without constantly looking over my shoulder. I know, baby. Just hold on a little longer. After the trip, I'll talk to her. Maybe even file for divorce. It depends on how it goes. If I can split the condo fairly, so I get the bigger share, then I'm definitely leaving. You're serious? Hope sparked in the woman's voice. As serious as I can be, but it takes time. The condo is in both our names, bought during the marriage. By law, it's 50-50, but I think I can maneuver it so I get 2/3. I just need to find a smart lawyer and play my cards right. The recording continued. Layla sat, watching the phone screen where the seconds ticked by. 30, 45, 1 minute, 1.5, 2 minutes, and 32 seconds. Every word was burned into her memory. Every phrase was a nail in the coffin of their marriage. She didn't cry. Tears wouldn't come. There was only a cold, hollow feeling inside, as if something important, something alive, had been ripped out by the roots. Okay, let's go, the woman said. I still need to look at that dress, the red one I saw in the window. Let's go, let's go. I'll buy you a dress that will make everyone jealous, and shoes to match, and a clutch. There's plenty for everything, don't you worry. The curtain of the adjacent fitting room rustled. Layla stopped the recording and saved the file. 2.5 minutes, more than 150 seconds of his own words. Proof. She slowly rose from the poof. Her legs felt like cotton, but she forced herself to stand. She took off the coat, hung it back up, put on her jacket, grabbed her purse, checked that the phone was in her pocket, took a deep breath, exhaled, then pulled back her fitting room curtain and stepped out. Marcus stood a few feet away from her. Beside him was a fair-skinned woman, Tiana, in her late 20s, wearing a short black dress and high heels. Bright makeup, red lipstick, long manicured nails, gold hoop earrings. Beautiful, young, well-maintained. She was laughing at something, head thrown back, and Marcus was looking at her with a smile Layla hadn't seen in a very long time. Layla took a step forward, slowly, deliberately. Marcus turned at the sound of her steps and froze. The smile vanished from his face as if it had been wiped clean. His eyes widened, his mouth slightly open. He paled. Literally, his face turned waxy, as if all the blood had been drained instantly. Tiana also fell silent, darting her eyes from Layla to Marcus and back. "Layla," he finally choked out. His voice was husky, unfamiliar. What are you doing here?" Layla looked at him, calmly, very calmly, a long, examining look, as if seeing him for the first time. Then she held up her phone, the screen still illuminated, showing the saved audio file with the timestamp. 2.5 minutes. "I recorded it," she said quietly, almost a whisper. But in that silence, the word rang out like a gunshot. Marcus froze. If he had been pale before, now he was ash gray. His lips trembled. "What? Recorded what?" he mumbled, though the look on his face showed he understood perfectly. Tiana took a step back, her eyes darting between them. Layla said nothing. She simply stood and stared at her husband, at the man she had lived with for 8 years, whom she had trusted, whom she had loved, and who had turned out to be someone she didn't know at all. Then she turned and walked toward the exit. She passed the associate, who was asking about the coat, if she liked it, if she was going to buy it. Layla didn't answer. She walked past the racks, past the displays, past the mirrors, without looking back. Her steps were firm, her back straight. Behind her, she heard Marcus's voice, confused, frightened, almost pleading. "Layla, wait! Layla, stop! Let's talk! It's not what you think!" She didn't stop, didn't turn around. She just walked forward through the store to the escalator, down to the exit. The automatic doors slid open. The cold evening air hit her face. There was a knot in her throat, but she didn't allow herself to cry. Only when she was in the taxi and it pulled away did Layla allow herself to exhale. Her hands were still shaking. She looked at the phone in her hand. The audio file was there, saved, recorded. The proof that her life had just collapsed, and at the same time, the proof that she now knew the truth. Layla entered the condo and locked the door with all the deadbolts. Her hands were still trembling as she kicked off her shoes and hung her jacket on the hook in the foyer. The condo was quiet, empty, cold. She had left that morning without turning up the heat. Now, this silence felt alien, as if she hadn't come home but into the set of her former life. She walked into the bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed, and only then felt herself completely break. The knot in her throat swelled. Her breathing became ragged. Tears streamed down her face, bitter, burning. Layla covered her face with her hands and wept, uninhibited, sobbing like a child. 8 years. 8 years of life with a man she turned out not to know at all. 8 years of trust, care, and shared plans. She remembered meeting him at a mutual friend's birthday party. Marcus had seemed reliable, calm, serious, not the type to speak without thinking. He courted her beautifully. Flowers, movies, evening strolls. A year later, he proposed. 6 months after that, they had a modest but warm wedding with close friends and family. And now, this, alone in her name, a mistress, lies about business trips, plans for divorce and condo division. And his voice, careless, mocking, she won't know the difference. Layla wiped her tears with the back of her hand, stood up, and went to the closet. She needed to compose herself. She needed to think. Tears wouldn't solve anything. She opened the bottom drawer of the dresser where they kept important documents. She pulled out a folder marked Important. Inside were their passports, their marriage certificate, the condo deed, and some old statements. Layla dumped everything onto the table and started sorting through it. Her passport, Marcus's passport, the marriage license, the condo purchase agreement. Where else could the papers be? She remembered that Marcus always stacked certain envelopes in the top drawer of his desk. Before, she had never gone through his things, believing everyone should have their privacy, but this was no time for delicacy. Layla walked to the desk and opened the drawer. Inside were pens, notebooks, receipts, paper clips, and a sealed white envelope. She picked it up, turned it over. Nothing was written on the envelope. She tore it open and pulled out the sheets. A loan agreement. Her name, her ID details, the amount, $45,000. Term, 3 years. At the bottom, a signature. Layla looked closely. The signature was similar to hers, but not exactly right. The letters were slightly larger, the pressure stronger. He had forged it. She felt nauseous. She sank into a chair, holding the agreement. There it was, black and white, the proof. He really had taken out a loan in her name, forged her signature, and received the money. Layla picked up her phone, found the bank's number on their website, and called. Long rings. Then an automated voice offering to press numbers to select a service. She pressed 0 to connect with an operator. Good evening, Fidelity Bank. My name is Denise. How may I help you? A pleasant female voice asked. Good evening. My name is Layla Vance. I want to check on a loan that may have been taken out in my name. I can check that for you. Please provide your social security number and date of birth. Layla dictated the information. A pause, the sound of keys clicking on the other side. Yes, there is indeed a consumer loan taken out in your name. The amount is $45,000. The date of issue was October 23rd, 3 days ago. 3 days ago. Layla closed her eyes. It was very recent. He hadn't even had time to spend all the money. Tell me, can I dispute this loan? The thing is, I didn't sign for it. The signature is not mine. I understand your situation. In that case, you need to come to a bank branch with your ID and file a fraud report. We will conduct a signature analysis. If it is confirmed that the signature is forged, the loan will be annulled and the case will be handed over to law enforcement. How quickly can this be done? We accept the report on any business day. The analysis usually takes between 5 and 10 business days. Come in first thing in the morning, ideally right when we open, to avoid a wait. Okay, thank you. You're very welcome. Call us if you have any questions. Layla hung up. First thing tomorrow, the bank. But that wasn't enough. She needed to go to the police too. She needed to document everything officially, so he couldn't wriggle out of it. She opened her phone's browser, typed in fraud report police form sample, and quickly scanned the text. It was clear. She needed to describe the situation, attach evidence, and provide the relevant details. Tomorrow morning she would go to the bank first, then to the police precinct. It was nearly 8 o'clock. Marcus could be back at any moment. Layla did not want to see him. Not now, not while her emotions raged inside, threatening to erupt. She stood up, went to the kitchen, poured herself a glass of water, and drank it slowly, trying to calm down. Then she returned to the bedroom, pulled her gym bag from the closet, and started packing. A couple of changes of clothes, jeans, a sweater, pajamas, her makeup bag, phone charger, documents, the loan agreement. She wouldn't spend the night here. She would go to her sister's place. Imani had always said, "If you ever need me, just show up." A lock clicked in the front door. Layla froze. Marcus. He had come home. She heard him taking off his shoes, hanging up his jacket. Then his footsteps headed toward the bedroom. The door opened. Marcus stood in the doorway, pale, bewildered, guilty. He looked at her, at the bag, at the documents scattered on the table. "Layla," he began softly, "let's talk, please." She remained silent, just standing and looking at him. This man, who had been her husband just yesterday, had become a stranger today. "I can explain everything," Marcus continued, taking a step forward. It's not what you think. I didn't want to betray you. It just happened. It just happened? Layla's voice was cold, level. You took out a loan on me, forged my signature, lied about business trips, cheated, and planned to divorce me and sue for the condo. And that just happened? Marcus winced as if in pain. I wasn't planning on getting a divorce. I just said that to get her off my back. Look, that girl, Tiana, she doesn't mean anything. It was just a fling, a distraction. But you are my wife, my family. $45,000 for a distraction. Layla took a step toward him. Do you seriously think I'm that stupid? No, of course not. I don't think you're stupid. I got lost. I had debts, you understand? Old debts from last year. I needed money urgently and my credit was shot. They wouldn't give me a loan, so I thought, if it was in your name, I wanted to ask, but I was afraid you wouldn't understand, that you would refuse. Of course, I would have refused. Layla's voice broke into a shout. Because that's fraud. Because it's my credit history, my name, my money that I'll have to pay back, and you didn't even bother to ask me? Marcus hung his head. I'm sorry. I know I was wrong, but I'll pay it all back. I promise. I'll make the payments myself. You won't even notice them. Shut up. Layla felt a churning inside, a wave of pure fury rising. Just shut up. I recorded your conversation, the whole thing from start to finish. You said I wouldn't understand, that I was simple and gullible. You were laughing at me with your mistress. You were planning a trip to Cancun with my money. He looked up, his eyes filled with terror. Layla, please don't do anything crazy. Let's resolve this between ourselves, without involving outsiders. Outsiders? Do you mean the police? Why jump to that right away? We're a family. We can work this out. No, Marcus, we can't. I'm going to the bank and the police tomorrow. I'm filing a fraud report and I'm filing for divorce too. He went even paler. Layla, don't. Wait, let's discuss this. I'll change, I swear. No more mistakes, no more girls, nothing. Just you and me, like before. She shook her head. It won't be like before. You destroyed everything, with your own 2 hands. Marcus took another step, reaching out as if to touch her shoulder, but Layla recoiled. Don't touch me, she said quietly. I'm packing my things and leaving for a few days. I need to think. Where are you going? None of your business. She zipped up the bag, slung it over her shoulder, and grabbed her phone and documents. Marcus stood helpless and bewildered in the middle of the room. Layla walked past him without a glance. Layla, please, his voice cracked. Don't leave like this. Let's at least talk calmly tomorrow morning. She stopped at the door and looked back. Tomorrow morning, I'll be at the bank, and then the police station. If you want to talk, you can talk to the detective. And she walked out. It was dark and cold outside. Layla pulled out her phone and dialed her sister's number. Imani answered on the 3rd ring. Hey girl, what's up? Imani, can I come over to stay the night? Of course. What's wrong? You sound off. I'll tell you later. I'm heading out now. All right, I'll be waiting. Do you have your key? Yes. Then hurry on over. I'll put the kettle on. Layla hailed a taxi, climbed into the back seat, and closed her eyes. Her whole body ached from fatigue and tension, but the worst was the emptiness inside, as if something had been burned to ashes, leaving only cinders. Imani lived on the other side of the city, in an older apartment complex. Layla went up to the 6th floor and rang the bell. Imani opened the door immediately, tall, light-skinned, in a housecoat and fuzzy slippers. Come in, come in. She moved aside, letting Layla into the apartment. Lord, you look pale. What happened? Layla walked into the living room, collapsed onto the sofa, and only then realized she couldn't hold it in anymore. The words poured out about the mall, the fitting room, the recording, the loan, the mistress, everything. Imani listened without interruption, her face growing harder and harder. Oh, Layla, she breathed out when Layla finished. I always felt something was off with him, but I thought it was just my intuition acting up. And now I find out I lived with a fraud for 8 years. Layla gave a bitter chuckle. 8 years of trusting, giving him my paycheck, never checking where the money went, believing every single word. And Imani sat closer and put her arm around her sister's shoulders. Listen, tomorrow morning we're going to the bank together, then the police. I'm with you, don't worry. That scumbag is going to pay for everything. I'm scared, Layla confessed quietly. Scared I won't be able to handle it, that he'll twist it, lie, or blame me. He won't get away with it. You have the recording. You have the loan agreement with the forged signature. The analysis will confirm it. He's finished, girl, and you were smart not to panic. You recorded everything. Layla nodded. Imani was right. She had the evidence. She just needed to act. They stayed up talking until midnight. Imani made tea, brought out cookies, calming and encouraging her sister, and Layla told her everything that had accumulated over the years. How Marcus had gradually withdrawn, how he'd grown cold, how he'd stopped caring about her life, how she'd blamed it on stress, on work, on circumstances, how she'd ignored the small things, the scent of strange perfume, the calls he hung up on when she was around, the frequent late nights. I knew, but I didn't want to admit it, Layla said, staring into her cup of cold tea. I thought if I didn't pay attention, everything would fix itself. That's not how it works, Imani gently replied. If there's a problem, you have to face it, not pretend everything is fine. I know that now. Layla woke up early the next morning, though she'd slept poorly, tossing and turning, waking up and falling back into a troubled sleep. Imani was already in the kitchen making breakfast. Morning, sleep okay? So, it's all right. Today's going to be a hard day, but we'll get through it. I already called work and told them I'd be late. We're heading to the bank right when they open. Layla nodded. They ate quickly, cheese sandwiches and coffee. Then they got dressed and left. The bank opened at 9 o'clock. They arrived 10 minutes early and managed to be the first in line. When the doors opened, Layla approached the administrator and explained the situation. The woman listened carefully, nodded, and led them to a private office. Have a seat. A specialist from our fraud operations team will be with you shortly. 5 minutes later, a man in his 40s entered, wearing a sharp suit and carrying a folder of documents. Hello, my name is Mr. Howard. I'm the senior specialist for the security department. Please explain the situation. Layla told him everything, concisely and factually, showed him the agreement, and played the voice recording. Mr. Howard listened without interrupting, taking notes. Understood, he said when Layla finished. This is indeed a serious situation. We will perform a signature analysis. You'll need to provide several samples of your handwriting on different sheets of paper. Also, please fill out a statement confirming the loan was taken without your consent. If the analysis confirms forgery, the loan will be annulled, and we will forward the case to the police. How long will this take? The analysis is 5 to 7 business days. We will contact you immediately once we have the results. Layla wrote the statement and signed her name several times on blank sheets for the analysis. Mr. Howard neatly organized everything into the folder. We will be in touch. Don't worry if the signature is truly forged, and I'm confident it is, the loan will be annulled. Thank you. They left the bank. Layla felt that the first step had been taken. Now, the police. The precinct was a 10-minute drive away. They arrived, passed through the security checkpoint, and went up to the second floor. The desk officer directed them to a detective's office. The detective, a man in his 50s with a tired face, listened to Layla, reviewed the documents, and listened to the recording. Clear, he said. This falls under felony fraud and forgery of documents. File a report, we'll register it, and open a case. Your husband will be called in for questioning. If guilt is confirmed, he faces probation or jail time, depending on the circumstances. Layla wrote the report, detailed as Imani had instructed. Who, what, when, where. She attached a copy of the agreement and provided the audio file. We will issue a warrant to open the criminal case within 3 days, the detective said. You will be called in as the victim for testimony. and your husband as the suspect. All right. When they left the precinct, Layla felt a strange sense of relief. Everything was official. Everything was documented. Now it wasn't just her word against his. Now it was the law. You did good, Imani said, hugging her sister. You're doing everything right. Thanks for being with me. Always. That evening, as Layla lay on Imani's sofa, Marcus called. She didn't answer. He called back, and again. She blocked his number. An hour later, a text came from an unfamiliar number. Layla, it's me. Please, let's meet. Let's talk normally. I understand I was wrong. I'm ready to pay everything back, to fix everything. Just don't ruin our family. Layla looked at the screen, then deleted the message and blocked that number too. Family? What family? He ruined it himself, with his own hands, with his lies, with his betrayal. Now she only had to move forward. A week passed. A week that felt like an eternity for Layla. She went to work trying to focus on her tasks, but her mind constantly returned to what had happened. Colleagues noticed she was distracted, pale, and quiet. Her boss, Ms. Lee, stopped by her desk a few times to ask if everything was all right. Layla answered briefly, yes, just tired, and submerged herself in paperwork again. She continued to live with Imani. She didn't want to go back to the condo. Even the thought of having to see Marcus made her sick. Imani didn't mind. On the contrary, she said she was happy for the company. In the evenings, they sat in the kitchen, drank tea, and talked. Imani talked about her job at the travel agency, the annoying clients, and new tour packages. Layla listened distractedly, grateful not to be silent and alone. On Wednesday, the bank called. Mr. Howard informed her that the analysis was complete. Ms. Vance, we have the results. The signature on the loan agreement is indeed forged. The handwriting expert confirmed it's not yours. The loan has been annulled and all accrued interest has been waived. You will not be required to repay the funds. Layla exhaled, feeling an enormous weight lift from her shoulders. Thank you. Thank you so much. We have forwarded all materials to the police. They will be in touch with you shortly. And sure enough, on Thursday evening, the detective called. He introduced himself as Detective Johnson and asked her to come in for testimony the next morning. Layla agreed. On Friday morning, she took a couple of hours off work and drove to the precinct. The detective met her in a small office with bare walls, a metal desk, and 2 chairs. He was a young man in his 30s with attentive eyes and a serious expression. Please sit down, Ms. Vance. Tell me everything in sequence. Layla spoke for a long time. The detective asked questions, clarified details, and took notes. Then he played the recording she had brought, listening carefully. Understood, he said when the recording ended. The picture is clear. Your husband committed fraud, took out a loan in your name without your knowledge, and forged your signature. That is a serious felony offense, plus forgery. We will call him in for questioning. A summons will be issued today. What kind of sentence is he facing? If he pleads guilty and agrees to a victim-offender reconciliation, probation is possible, along with an order to pay you restitution for emotional damages. If not, actual jail time up to 3 years. But given that this is a first offense and the victim is his spouse, it's likely to end in probation. Layla nodded. She didn't want Marcus to go to jail. She wasn't vindictive. She just wanted justice, and for him to be held accountable for what he had done. I want to file for divorce, she said. Where should I go? The county clerk's office. If he agrees to the divorce, and there are no property disputes. If there are disputes, you'll need a lawyer to go to court. But it's faster to try and settle amicably first. After leaving the precinct, Layla immediately went to the county clerk's office. She was given the divorce petition form. She filled it out, sitting right at a table in the hallway, carefully writing the letters. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Reason: irreconcilable differences. Short, dry, no emotion. If the other spouse agrees, he must also file his own petition, the clerk, an older woman in glasses, explained. Then, in about 30 days, you will receive your final decree. If he disagrees, you go to court, which takes longer. I'll try to reach an agreement with him, Layla replied, though she wasn't sure Marcus would simply agree. That evening, she decided to text him. She unblocked his number and typed the message, "Marcus, we need to talk. Tomorrow at 3 o'clock at the cafe near the park. Come alone." A reply came a few minutes later. "Okay, I'll be there." The next day, Layla arrived at the cafe 15 minutes before the scheduled time. She ordered tea and sat at a window table. Her nerves were shot, her hands were shaking. She hadn't seen Marcus in over a week and didn't know how she would react to meeting him. He showed up right at 3. He walked into the cafe, looked around, saw her, and headed toward the table. He looked rough, a drawn face, dark circles under his eyes, a wrinkled shirt. He sat across from her without saying a word. "Hi," Layla began. "Hi," he replied hoarsely. They were silent for a few seconds. Then Marcus spoke first. "I was called in for questioning. The detective said a criminal case has been opened against me, fraud and forgery of documents. Layla, I didn't want it to come to this. Truly, I just got lost, got into debt, and didn't know how to get out. I thought I could pay the money back quickly, that you wouldn't find out. But I did find out? Yes, and I understand that you're angry. You have every right to be. But I'm begging you, let's try to fix this. I'm ready to pay you restitution. I'm ready to pay off the debts. I'm ready to do anything. Just don't ruin our family." Layla looked at him with a steady gaze. In his eyes there was pleading, desperation, but the man she knew was no longer there, or maybe he never had been. "Marcus, the family is gone," she said calmly. "You destroyed it yourself. I filed for divorce. I want you to file your petition too, so this can be over quickly and without court." He paled. "You're serious?" "Absolutely." "But Layla, can't you forgive me? Everyone makes mistakes. I'll change, I swear." "You didn't make a mistake, Marcus. You lied to me for months, took out a loan in my name, cheated on me, and planned to sue for the condo. That's not a mistake. That's betrayal." He lowered his head, clenching his fists. "What about the condo? How do we split it?" "By law, 50-50. You can buy out my share, or I can buy out yours, or we can sell it and split the money. It makes no difference to me." "I can't buy out your share. I don't have the money." "Then we'll sell it." Marcus nodded without looking up. "Fine. I'll file the divorce petition." "When?" "Tomorrow. They'll give you the form at the clerk's office." He stood up, didn't say goodbye, and walked out of the cafe. Layla remained seated, looking out the window. It was raining outside. People hurried past with umbrellas. Cars drove through puddles, splashing water. Life continued. 3 days later, Marcus was called in by the detective again. Detective Johnson offered him the chance to plead guilty and enter into a victim-offender reconciliation agreement with Layla. Marcus agreed. He signed all the documents, admitting that he took out the loan without his wife's knowledge, forged her signature, and agreed to pay Layla $10,000 in restitution. The detective issued a dismissal of the criminal case due to the reconciliation of the parties, but sentenced Marcus to 2 years of probation. This meant that if he committed another crime within those 2 years, he would go to jail. Layla learned about this from the detective's call. "Your husband pleaded guilty and agreed to reconciliation. The case is dismissed, but he received probation and is obligated to pay you $10,000. The funds must be transferred within 3 months." "Thank you," Layla said. She felt no triumph, no malice, only exhaustion and relief that this nightmare was finally ending. On Monday, Marcus filed his petition for divorce. A month later, they received their final decree. Layla went to the county clerk's office alone, received the document, and walked out into the street. The weather was clear. The sun broke through the clouds. She looked at the decree, seal, signature, the official end of an 8-year marriage. That evening, her friends Shayla and Nicole, whom she'd known since college, invited her out. They met at a small restaurant downtown, ordered wine and appetizers. "To your freedom, Shayla," red-haired, cheerful, and always supportive, raised her glass. "To a new life, and to never getting involved with jerks like that again," added Nicole, serious and direct. Layla smiled. For the first time in a long time, she smiled genuinely. "Thank you, girls. I couldn't have gotten through this without you." "Please, you're a rock," Shayla said. "Not everyone could have pulled themselves together that fast. I probably would have cried for a week." "I cried," Layla admitted, "just not in front of everyone." They talked late into the night, discussing the past and making plans for the future. Shayla suggested they all go to the Caribbean that summer. Nicole advised her to sign up for yoga or a gym membership. "You need a change of pace," she said. "Get into something new, a hobby, sports, some classes. The main thing is not to dwell on the past." Layla nodded. She knew her friends were right. She had to move on. She had to build a new life without Marcus, without the heavy burden that had weighed her down all those years. The condo issue was resolved surprisingly fast. They found a buyer through a real estate agent and closed the deal. Layla received her half, $130,000. This was enough to rent a small one-bedroom apartment on the edge of the city, with some left over for the first few months. The move was quick. Imani helped her gather her things and pack boxes. They went to the old condo on a Saturday morning when Marcus wasn't home. Layla only took her clothes, books, a few photos, and the dishes she had bought herself years ago. She left everything else. She didn't want anything that reminded her of the past. The new apartment was small but cozy. The windows faced the courtyard, where old oak trees grew and a children's swing set stood. Layla arranged her things, hung curtains, and placed a pot of African violets, a gift from Imani, on the windowsill. "Well," Imani said, looking around the room, "now this is your home, yours and only yours." Layla hugged her sister. "Thank you for everything. Don't mention it, we're family." That evening, after Imani left, Layla was alone. She sat on the sofa, pulled a throw over herself, and just sat, staring out the window. It was getting dark outside. Lights came on in the windows of the neighboring buildings. Somewhere children were playing, a dog barked, a car drove by. Quiet, peaceful. No one was lying, cheating, or betraying. She pulled out her phone, opened her notes, and wrote a list of things she wanted to do. 1. Sign up for Spanish classes. 2. Go to the ocean. 3. Find a new hobby. 4. Learn to trust myself. Then she put the phone down and closed her eyes. An entire life lay ahead of her. New, unknown, frightening, and at the same time, exciting. A life in which she made her own decisions, was responsible for her own actions, and built her own happiness. And that was beautiful. 3 months passed since the divorce. Layla gradually got used to her new life, though it wasn't easy at first. In the morning, she woke up in her small apartment, brewed coffee in her tiny kitchen, looked out the window at the courtyard with the oak trees, and was surprised every time by the quiet. No shouting, no tension, no anxious waiting for her husband to come home and what lie he would tell this time. Work still took up most of her day. Layla tried to bury herself in her tasks. It helped her avoid thinking about the past. Her colleagues noticed the change. Ms. Lee once stopped by her during lunch and sat opposite her. "Layla, you've changed," she said, thoughtfully. "You seem calmer, more confident somehow. I don't know how else to put it." Layla smiled. "Maybe I have changed. A lot has happened lately. I'm happy for you. Keep up the good work." Marcus transferred the first payment of the restitution, $3,000. Layla received the transfer notification and felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, just a statement of fact. The money had arrived. His mistress, Tiana, disappeared right after everything came out. Imani once mentioned seeing Marcus alone at the mall, looking disheveled with a dull look in his eyes. Layla didn't ask for details. She didn't care. In early November, Layla signed up for Spanish classes. She had always wanted to learn, but Marcus had discouraged her, saying it was a waste of time, that she wouldn't need it, that she should just stay home and rest. Now, no one was discouraging her. The classes met 3 times a week in the evenings at a small learning center near her home. The group was small, 8 adults, all with different goals. Some were learning for work, some for travel, and some just for themselves. The instructor was an energetic woman in her mid-40s with a short haircut and lively eyes. She didn't just teach grammar, she talked about culture, countries, and people. The lessons were easy and stress-free. Layla quickly immersed herself, doing homework in the evenings, listening to Spanish podcasts on her commute, and watching films with subtitles. The language came relatively easily. She still had her high school foundation. She just needed to refresh it and add practice. One day after class, one of the students approached her. A man in his 40s, tall, wearing glasses, with a pleasant, calm face. "Excuse me, may I ask you something?" he began. "Do you happen to work in accounting?" Layla was surprised. "I do. Why?" "I thought I recognized you. Maybe I saw you at your office on business. I'm Julian Hayes." He extended his hand. "Layla Vance." She shook his hand. "What were you in for?" "A cooperation agreement. I work for a construction company. We finalized the documents with your team." Layla remembered. Indeed, about 3 months ago, a representative from a construction firm had come in. Pleasant, polite, got straight to the point, resolved everything. "Yes, I remember. Nice to meet you again." They started talking. It turned out Julian had also recently divorced, about a year ago. He was also learning Spanish because he planned to travel. He dreamed of seeing Europe, the US West Coast, and Asia. He had spent his whole life working, building his career, and now he decided to live for himself. "I understand," Layla said. "I'm just starting to live for myself too." They left the center together. It was drizzling outside and it was cold. Julian opened his umbrella. "I can walk you to your bus stop if you'd like." "Thank you." They walked under one umbrella, talking about the class, their plans, and life. It felt easy, comfortable. Layla felt she could talk to this man without pressure, without having to choose her words carefully. At the bus stop, they said goodbye. Julian smiled. "Maybe we could grab coffee sometime after class. Just to talk, no strings attached." Layla thought for a second, then nodded. "Why not?" They started meeting after class. Not every time, but regularly. They went to a cafe, talked, and sometimes just walked through the city at night. Julian talked about his work, how he built houses, how he dreamed of creating something meaningful, and how his marriage had ended quietly, without scandal. They simply realized they were no longer right for each other. "My wife and I were together for 15 years, he said. They were good years, honestly. But at some point, we realized we had become strangers. We divorced amicably and remained on good terms. No kids, so no trauma for anyone." Layla listened and realized that sometimes it happened that way too. Divorce wasn't always drama, betrayal, and scandal. Sometimes people just went their separate ways, acknowledging that their paths had diverged. Julian wasn't rushing her. He didn't pry with questions or try to get close immediately. He was simply there, calm, reliable, respectful. Layla felt safe with him. One frosty, clear evening in late November, they were walking along the riverbank. The river was covered in a thin sheet of ice. Streetlights reflected in the water. Julian stopped and looked at her. "Layla, I know you're being cautious, and I'm not rushing anything, but I want you to know that I enjoy spending time with you, very much. You are an interesting person, and I would like to get to know you better. If you're open to it, of course." Layla looked at him, at his honest, open face, and suddenly realized that she wanted that too. She wanted to try to trust again, to open up to someone again, slowly, carefully, step by step. "I'm open to it," she replied. "Just let's take it slow. I need time." "As much time as you need," Julian smiled. "We have all the time in the world." December brought the first snow. Layla renovated her apartment, painting the walls a light beige, changing the curtains, and buying a new sofa. The apartment was transformed. It was truly hers. For New Year's, she went to Amani's. They celebrated together, just the two of them, with her sister's sweet potato pie, sparkling cider, and old holiday movies on TV. It was warm, cozy, and familial. "So, ready to take stock of the year?" Amani asked when the clock struck midnight. "It was a terrible year," Layla admitted, "but I'm glad it happened. I learned a lot. Like, never to hand your life over to someone else, that love isn't sacrifice but partnership, and that sometimes you have to be selfish to save yourself." Amani raised her glass. "To you, to your strength, to your future." "To us," Layla corrected. They clinked glasses. In January, Marcus transferred the second portion of the restitution. Layla deposited the money into her savings account and decided to save up for a trip. Shayla suggested they go to the Caribbean that summer. Sun, sea, and tropical drinks. Layla agreed. Why not? The Spanish classes were nearing the end. The instructor gave everyone certificates for completing the foundational level and advised them to keep practicing. "You all did great," she said during the last class. "The main thing is not to quit. You need to practice a language constantly, or you'll forget everything." Layla promised herself she wouldn't quit and signed up for the next level, which started in March. She and Julian continued to see each other, but more frequently now. They went to the movies, the theater, and museums. He introduced her to classical music, taking her to the Philharmonic. Layla was discovering new worlds she hadn't considered before. One day in February, they were sitting in his car after a concert. Large snowflakes were falling outside, covering the city in a white blanket. Julian turned to her. "Layla, I know you're being careful, and I'm not trying to pressure you, but I want you to know I'm happy with you, very happy, and I'm ready to wait as long as it takes." Layla took his hand. "I'm happy with you too, Julian, and I'm ready to try. Slowly, but try." He smiled, leaned in, and kissed her. Tenderly, gently, respectfully. Layla returned the kiss and realized that she had finally let go of the past. Spring arrived unexpectedly early. In March, the snow melted and the first patches of green appeared. The air smelled of thawed earth. Layla started going to the gym. Nicole had convinced her to try fitness classes. Now they were sweating on the treadmills together 3 times a week. Marcus transferred the final portion of the restitution, the full $10,000. Layla received the notification and exhaled. That issue was closed forever. She never regretted her decision, never remembered Marcus with longing or regret. Only sometimes, very rarely, she thought of those 8 years as an important lesson. A lesson that you must not lose yourself in a relationship, that love is not sacrifice but partnership, and that trust must be mutual, not blind. In April, Julian suggested they take a weekend trip to a neighboring city. An exhibition of contemporary art was opening there. Layla agreed. They drove in his car, stayed at a small boutique hotel, walked on unfamiliar streets, looked at paintings, and debated the meaning of abstract art. That evening, they sat at a restaurant on the waterfront. Julian ordered wine, and they silently watched the sunset over the water. "You know," Layla began, "a year ago, I wouldn't have believed I'd be here, that I would be happy, that I would ever be able to trust anyone again. And now? And now I understand that life goes on, that after every ending, there is always a beginning." Julian took her hand. "I'm glad we met." "Me too." They returned to the city late Sunday evening. Julian walked Layla to her door and kissed her goodnight. "I'll see you this week." "Definitely." Layla walked into the apartment, undressed, made tea, and sat by the window. The spring evening darkened outside. Somewhere cats were crying, cars were rushing by. The ordinary life of an ordinary city. But for Layla, it was a new life, a life she was building herself, with her own hands, with her own decisions. A life without lies, betrayal, or fear. Only her choices, her freedom. She pulled out her phone, opened her notes, and added a new item to her list. 5. Learn to be happy. Then she smiled and put the phone down. She had already learned,